So your next step is to start building your cement pillars. First, you have to determine the thickness of your pillar. I chose to make mine 15 inches wide. Now you're gonna take a piece of 2x4 and chop it down into 4 pieces at a 45-degree angle on a chop saw. Now remember, whatever you decide your pillar is gonna be as far as the thickness, you're gonna measure from here to here. That's where you're gonna make your cuts on your 45-degree angle on your chop saw. Now keep in mind, you're gonna repeat this process twice for each pillar. One for the top part of the pillar and one for the bottom part. Now you're gonna use the same process again, but this time you're gonna use a piece of 2x2, and I'll tell you why later on in this video. Okay, so you're gonna take your 2x4s that you just finished cutting at a 45-degree angle, and you're gonna put some glue right here on the joints here, and then you're gonna take some nails if you have a nail gun and you're gonna shoot it, or you take some screws and just screw in the joints here, and you're gonna form the box right here. And this is actually gonna be the footing or the top of your pillars. Okay, so after you cut your 2x4s and your 2x2s, 45-degree angles, this is what it's gonna look like when it's all put together. So I just put 2 screws on top of each 2x2s to put them into the 2x4s, and I also screwed in and glued each corner. I also tacked them in with my little finishing nail guns. That's right there is going to be your top and bottom part of your pillar. Okay, so let's take a look at your next step, and that's going to be to take your 2x2 vertical pieces and connect them to the top and bottom part of your pillar. And this is what it's going to look like once you put it all together. And all I did was here is I put, if you can see, 1 screw going that way, and on the opposite side, 1 screw going that way, and I use glue as well on each corner. Okay, so your next step is obviously you're going to cut your plywood, and that's going to be the skin of your pillar. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little tip right now, and this is very important because this is going to help you conserve your materials. Now, I know my distance from top to bottom on this edge right here, where we're going to fill in with the plywood, is 61 inches. Now, we also know the thickness of our pillar is going to be 15 inches. Now, remember, we cut the 2x2 and the 2x4, and a part of the dimensions were 15 inches apart. I bought 2 pieces of 4x8 1/4-inch plywood at Home Depot. I had them rip it right down the middle, which would give me 4 pieces at 2 feet wide. Now pay attention, folks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my measurements 15 inches going along the long side of the board. You can literally get 6 pieces out of this one board, and it will give you 24 inches, which is 2 feet going up on this pillar. 2 boards, that's all you need, 2 boards on that pillar on each side. So you're saving so much just by doing it this way. So after cutting 6 pieces out of that one board, this is what was left over. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna measure 15 inches here to there, and I'm gonna utilize whatever's left over. So after cutting your plywood panels, it's time to install them. So let's go take a look at what it's gonna look like when we put everything all together, or we do a little mock-up. This is what it all is gonna come down to. Now, the spaces are gonna be covered up with foam, so you don't have to cover the whole face up with plywood. Now, I also put these 2x4s in to attach the fencing to. So let's get started cutting our foam. All right, so now we have all of our foam panels on, as you can see. And the next step is I'm gonna put the toppings on all of these bad boys. Okay, so I want to make note of something before I go any further. We're saying, well, there's some uneven things here. Don't worry about that. That's very minute right now, because remember, this is going to be chopped up and banged up. It's going to make, we're going to make it look like it's been aged. So as long as you basically have your spacings basically all the same in between the bricks or the I don't know what you call it, the stones, you're fine. So don't get too far ahead of yourself and worry about little details, because a lot of it's going to be covered. Okay, so now it's time to cut your foam toppings for the pillars, and I'm going to show you how I did mine. Okay, so the first thing I did was determine my measurements for my toppings on the pillars. I made mine 19 by 19. So I wanted to get it a little more realistic feeling to the toppings. So what I did was I pitched an angle on each of the toppings. And the way I did that was I took my rotary saw, which is a battery operated rotary saw, and all I did was tilt the blade. If you can see that, this was a perfect tool for that. You guys may not have this tool, but I invested in this a long time ago. So it was perfect. And that gave me a tilt to make it look a little more realistic. All right, so I got my toppings pretty much cut, and I'm going to show you what it looks like and what I'm talking about. It came out perfect, exactly the way I wanted it to look, and this is what it looks like. See the tilt? And then I'm going to put some lights on top of that as well, and that's what it looks like. I'm happy with it. Hey guys, have you ever had one of those moments where your wife is like, why do you collect all this junk? You don't need it, throw it away. Like screws and little parts of different things. You leave it around the house because you say, oh, you never know when you're gonna need it, right? Well, today was a perfect example of that, because I needed to come up with an idea of how I was gonna attach my lanterns on top of the pillar stone. So if I needed to, do some repairs or take them off, it would be easy, accessible, and easy to remove. Now take a look at this. You see this piece of metal? You know where this came from? This came from a piece of flooring transition piece that I saved when I did the floor. There's an extra piece right here. And that's what I use to help stabilize and support the lanterns on top of the pillars. Now guys, this worked out absolutely perfect. All I did was glue a piece of plywood onto my stone topping, and then I cut that channel in two places, bent it to make a U shape, and now this will just hopefully slide in like this, and then I can put a screw in to hold it in place. Voila, perfect. All right, folks, so while that dries, we're gonna move on to the next procedure, and that is taking care of our surface. We're gonna make some cracks and do some, scrapings and all kinds of crazy stuff to make this look like a real stone face right here. Alrighty, so it's another day and I'm still here chugging along, trying to get everything ready for our Halloween big display. So as you know, we already installed our foam panels on our pillars, and now it's time to actually do the fine details of actually making the stone look like stone. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to give the stone some character. That means we're going to give it some chips and some cracks, like stone's supposed to look, especially in a graveyard. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use this little device. It's a soldering iron, and all you have to do is, I found a technique that works for me. It's really good to make these little edges on the top. Is I actually use the side of the soldering iron And for the cracks, basically, I just went along and made it, look like cracks by doing a zigzag across there like so. All right, folks, so while I'm waiting for my soldering iron to heat up a little bit, I just want to let you know that there's no proper or correct way of doing this. It's whatever way you find it's easier and works for you is probably the best way. I mean, some people, chose to use from other YouTube videos something like this and scrape up the sides. I might even incorporate that on some areas and, scrape up the sides. And also, some people use this as well. I don't really know what that does, but it's a wire brush. They've used that as well. I've seen in other YouTube videos. All right, so I'm going to give you an example. The heat gun is obviously, excuse me for a second. All right, so the heat gun is obviously smoking. That means it's hot. So I'm going to give you a little short example of how I use this to make my edges look the way they do. All I do is lay the side of the heat gun and run it down on the edge here like that. I don't know if you guys can see it. And push in some areas harder than others. And that gives you your little edge right there, if you can see it. So to make a crack, all you're going to do is push on the heat gun. Little zigzag here and there. And that's my crack. Very simple. And then you can make it thicker by going over the edges again if you want. Like I said, there's no set way of doing this, so that's it. Okay, so our fence caps came in today and I just installed them. They look absolutely beautiful, and this is what they're going to look like once you put them on. I just used a heat gun to put them on. They came in today from Amazon and it's looking pretty damn good.
All right, folks, so we're winding down this video. We're almost there. The next procedure is actually giving the pillars the color and the texture that it desires to make it look real. And the way we did this was we actually painted the pillars first. We painted them black, and then after that we mixed up like a mortar or a cement, a grout. I think it was a grout, to tell you the truth. And we made it very, very watery, and we used a paintbrush to apply it. And this way, you don't want to do a second coat, and you want it very thin, layered. This way, the black will still show through that, through the color of that cement. And then you don't obviously go around the cracks too. You leave those black, and that's what gives that texture and that real feel of the stone. So I mean, you guys can probably go on YouTube and figure out how to do this another way. This is just our way, the way we did it, and it worked out fine. So I don't know, just experiment with it. So I'm just saying.